Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to look at creating some custom blocks and things that you can do with different patches or shapes within the block designer. So I've got my blank canvas here. This is a brand new design that we started. And so the first thing I'm going to do is create a new block. And this opens up the block designer. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so that I can get my grid, my block grid in here. And the first thing that we want to do is define our dimensions for our block. So in this case, it defaults to a 12 by 12. We're going to leave it at that. We're going to create a 12 by 12, but I can make it whatever I need to. I can make it down to the 1/4 inch sizes if I need to, 9 1/4, 9 1/2, 8 1/2, whatever you need to make it. Go ahead and set that up here as your parameters, and that's kind of one of the first things that you want to do. Next, I'm going to expand my shapes and tools. And here we see all the different shapes that are available in the system. We're currently working on some new shapes to be able to predefine those and get those out there, but these will get you started. These are pretty much everything that you already need. And think of a shape as the number of points that you need, right? It's not always going to be the end result, but it's more of like the number of points. So we're going to create a pinwheel pattern in our design here. So I'm going to start with some triangles. So I'm going to choose the triangle option, and it's just going to place a generic triangle on the screen. And this is what we're going to show today. Just because it placed this on the screen, it defaulted to a 4 by 4. You can see with my measurements on the left that it's 4 inches tall, and the center point is 2, and 2 and 2 of course make 4, so it's a 4 inch by 4 inch triangle. And I can move it around. And I do want to show a couple tips real quick. We have some other videos on the block designer, but this one, as I move this around, you can see that there is a shadow kind of behind the triangle. It's snapping to that grid line system. This is the magic and the beauty of CINCHQuilt, is that everything's going to snap to that grid system to make sure that everything is always lined up with ease. So as I'm holding and dragging this triangle around, that shadow is kind of moving and telling me when I release my mouse where that triangle is going to go to. So it's actually going to snap to where that shadow was. And this is where the grid line scale comes in. Right now it's set to 1/2 of an inch, so every one of these little blocks is 1/2 of an inch, and you can see that that's accurate based on the rulers that we see. These are accurate measurements across the top, and you can adjust that. So if you need a larger, a less accurate measurement, you can slide all the way up to a 1 inch, and then your triangle is going to snap to that 1 inch grid. If you need a finer control, you can slide it all the way down to 1/16 of an inch to get that really fine-tuned control. In this case, I've got a 1/4 inch set, and then you can see that it's snapping to that 1/4 inch grid lines. So I'm going to go back to a 1/2 inch. This is my default. This is kind of where I want to start working. And in this case, I want to create a windmill, or kind of a windmill pattern, right? So starting with this. So if I click on this pattern, or if I click on this patch, I get this bounding box. So just simply by one click on it, it is giving me this bounding box. And this allows me to stretch or skew that triangle, but kind of it does it proportionately, right? It's keeping that same kind of look, the same orientation, right? Where it's skinny towards the top and then kind of fatter, wider towards the bottom. It's allowing me to scale that. But most of the time, I'm going to need to do something slightly different. Maybe I don't want this orientation. Maybe I want something slightly different. Well, if I hold the Shift key on my keyboard, all right, so I got my patch selected, and I'm going to hold Shift on my keyboard. Click, so I hold Shift. Well, the bounding box goes away, and you can see that actually now I'm presented with these 3 points. So the point of the triangle, I can manipulate them independently now. Now I can fine tune what this looks like. As you can see, I can move the single point around, and now I can start to get different shapes and orientations of the same kind of triangle. So in this case, I want a 6 by 6 triangle that looks something like that. So now I was able to move this into place. I can quickly get my 6 by 6 triangle in the orientation that I need to. If I release my Shift key, it gives me that bounding box, and then now it'll scale and skew based on that orientation. So again, simply selecting a patch will select it. Simply clicking a patch will select it. Holding my Shift key will give me the ability to manipulate each of the points. And this applies to all the different shapes. So for example, I'm going to drop a star onto the design here. We're going to delete this. It's not part of the design. I did want to just show you. So as I have this star, Again, I'm clicking on it, I get this bounding box, and this bounding box allows me to scale the star. However, if I hold shift, I get all the individual points that I'm able to do something with. So now I can really manipulate this thing and do with it, what I need to. If I need to create a very unique shape, I can. I've got the ability to do that, and these points will now always snap to that grid line. Right, so that's kind of a weird little shape we made, but it's just showing you that if you hold shift down, you can get the individual points, and you can really make some shapes your own. So you can do that with all the shapes. So think of these shapes as not necessarily just that shape, right? This is not just an octagon, but instead it's got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sides, or 6 sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry. Think of this as, it's a 6-point item. So if I need a shape that also has 6 points, or 4 points, or whatever it needs to be, I can use that as a starting point, and then I can use the shift key to manipulate each of the points around. Okay, so now that we understand how to add shapes, we know how to manipulate them slightly. I'm going to use the copy and paste command. So just like you would expect in like a Word or an Excel application, you can hold Control-C to copy it and Control-V to paste it. There's also, if you don't want to use your keyboard, simply clicking the patch or shape, there is the duplicate option at the top, and it gives you the ability to do the same thing. It just duplicates that shape. So if I delete this one, I can press the delete key. I can choose this shape, and I'm going to duplicate, and it gives me another shape just like it. Well, in this case, I'm going to flip this horizontally, and I'm also going to flip this vertically. And now it gives me another shape that I can put in place. And now I'm starting to get some alignment there. So I kind of want to replicate this scenario all the way kind of around. So before I do that, I'm going to color in some of the patterns. So I'm going to collapse and go to my colors and palettes. And I'm going to choose this lavender color. I think it's called Thistle. And I'm just going to color that piece there. We're going to do these two colors. We're going to use white, and we're going to use that. And now I want to duplicate this whole scenario. So I'm going to select both of those. So now I used my mouse to click and drag, and now I've got them both selected. I'm going to duplicate, so now I get that entire box. And I am going to rotate these 90 degrees clockwise. And so it just rotates the whole thing kind of around the center, and I'm going to put that in place. And I'm going to keep repeating that process. I'm going to duplicate, and then I'm going to rotate 90 degrees, and I'm going to put it in place. And then I'm going to duplicate, and I'm going to rotate 90 degrees, and I'm going to put it in place. And so now I've created this pinwheel pattern very quickly within my block. And if I saved this, it would of course go into my design, and I can do other things with it. From here I can duplicate, I can repeat that, I can edit it, I can do different things from that. So those will be in other videos. We'll talk about what to do next once we get a block onto our main design canvas. But this is the basic premise of creating blocks within your design. And think of the blocks as not just typical quilt blocks, but instead a way to group patches and shapes together. It doesn't have to be any one particular size. You can use a block, for example, to create a whole row of patches, and then maybe replicate that row down your entire quilt design. So just because we call it a design block doesn't necessarily mean it's always just a typical quilt block. It's a building block of sorts that allows you to group patches together for ease of drawing and creating your design. So again, hope this helps. We created used some triangles. We manipulated them a little bit. We showed the shift key. We showed the duplicate feature. You can rotate and flip and create your designs really quickly within CINCHQuilt. So thank you for watching, and we'll see y'all next time.